Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is 2:01 p.m. Thank you for joining us today for Water Cooler Conversations, week 5. Today's topic is Hey You Matter. And joining us today is Valerie Rivera from Counseling. I'm going to turn it over to Amanda, who's from PD, and we're going to continue with the conversation. If y'all have any questions, comments, please send them to the chat. If we cannot answer them today, we will get you the answers and email them out to you at the end after this. We will also be sending out a short survey. Please fill it out and give us more topics or ideas for future water cooler conversations. So take it away, Amanda.
Thank you, Priscilla. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And I do want to mention that March is Women's History Month and Social Workers Month. So with that being said, a big welcome and thank you to Valerie Rivera for joining us today. Just so that you all do know, I have known Valerie for a long time, and I know that she has a big heart and she's really in it to help everybody out. So thank you for joining us today. And would you like to introduce yourself, Val?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So my name is Valerie Rivera, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker for the School of Medicine, but I am currently housed over at the Counseling Center and work very closely with all of the therapists and staff members there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now here we have her information right here. And before we do begin, I do want to go over the disclaimer. So the content of this presentation and discussion, it can be troubling, especially for survivors of violence, victimization, or harassment. So please feel free to leave if the discussion triggers an upsetting response. Please treat this session as a safe space and respect the boundaries of others, especially if their views or experiences are clearly troubling to them. Okay, I wanted to get that out there. The objectives of today's water cooler conversation, Hey You Matter, are to gain an understanding of the Counseling Center, to identify those who can utilize the Counseling Center, and to identify collaborators and resources. So with that being said, we will get started. And like I said, Valerie and I go way back. So if it's kind of casual, that's, we're friends having a conversation. So Val, tell us about the Counseling Center. Is it only for students? Does the age of the student matter?
Yeah, so the Counseling Center is available to students only, so they must be enrolled at UTRGV. Services are absolutely free. They're confidential, right, with a few caveats to that we're going to, I think, talk about in a little bit. And it's extremely easy to make an appointment. All you have to do is call our number, 956-665-2574, and make an appointment. Just let them know that you're ready to make an appointment, and they will set you all up.
Awesome. So free, confidential. We really need to address that. So that's great. Thank you so much. Now, what about the procedure? I know you said you call in. What is the procedure, or what was it pre-COVID and right now during COVID? Because I know everybody is trying to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, so we've been working from home since March of 2020. So it's been a year. We're celebrating working from home, but also still kind of grieving, the loss of normalcy. So prior to COVID hitting, you would make an appointment the same way, or you would be able to walk into our offices, and everything was being conducted in person. Now that, we are working from home, everything's conducted online. Now, if for whatever reason you are unable to go in person, you are unable to, provide or get on, oh my gosh, I'm getting my words twisted here.
That's okay.
If you are unable to get online,
yeah,
then you just let us know and we'll figure out a way to still continue to provide you with those services, right? So there are various ways. If we need to go in, if we need to set you up in our offices so that you have access to a computer, internet, then just let us know, and we'll definitely make those arrangements with you.
That's awesome. That's good to know that you all are adaptable, just in case, because again, we never know people's situations. It's always a case by case.
Exactly.
Now, awesome. What about the counselors in the department? Are they licensed counselors? Are they students? Who is going to be helping our student population?
Yeah, so we have licensed counselors, right? Which means
Okay.
that they're licensed through the state of Texas. But we also have graduate interns, and they usually serve about a semester or so. And what that means is that they're getting ready to graduate so that they can go into the professional world. And they're working towards completing those requirements for their program. However, they are supervised by a clinical therapist while they provide individual and group sessions. So although you may be seeing a graduate student, and it just depends, they're always going to be supervised by a clinical therapist.
Okay, that's good. Good. Now, what is your part in working with the School of Medicine and working with the counseling center? Because I know that it can get a little confusing if we're not quite sure.
Yeah, so I provide therapy and resources to any of the medical students, right, that is requesting services. What that means is that I work under the School of Medicine, specifically under the Office of Student Health and Wellness. But the way that I work with the counseling center, I have a small caseload also from like UTRGV population. But the way that I work with them is really in collaboration. What is it that we can do to assist each other when it comes to individual sessions, when it comes to groups, when it comes to events. So sometimes I forget and they forget that, I am a part of the School of Medicine because I'm just so very well integrated into their counseling center program.
Okay, so you're able to help all. That's great. So the students that you do work with, or your fellow colleagues there in the counseling center, what are the topics and what are the issues that they're seeing?
Oh my gosh,
I know
and everything.
Yeah, just in case people in the audience aren't quite sure. Just
yeah. I mean,
at least a few,
right? Yeah. So we know that we all present with different challenges and different concerns in our lives. So really, when I say that we work with it all, I really do mean that. It doesn't mean that we're going to provide therapy for every single thing, but we're definitely going to be able to provide you with the resources. So in other words, if we're unable to do that, then we're going to point you in the direction so that you can get the assistance that you need. So some of those things are like anything from feeling the stressors of school to, traumatic experiences in your life. So anxiety, depression, adjustment, issues that usually do present themselves when you begin college life, right? Because it's life changing. There's an adjustment issue going on or adjustment process that you have to go through. Even if you stay at home when you start college, it's still an adjustment. You're not in your regular day-to-day routine like you were in high school and things like that. So it's a different atmosphere.
Awesome. What about if somebody is in session with you or Andrew or somebody there at the department, and they disclose abuse from their childhood, or even currently they're going through domestic violence? What is the protocol? What would you all do?
Okay, so this is an extremely loaded question, right?
It is, but I feel it's really important.
Yeah, there's like, I want to say that there are parameters that we follow, but again, I'm going to say that it's a case by case. But what I can tell you is that Texas law does require that a therapist report to the proper authorities, when there's any type of abuse, neglect, exploitation of a child, or elderly person or a disabled person, right? Anytime that there's that going on or it's suspected, then we have to report that. However, the caveat is that if a person is now an adult, right, and experience these things in childhood, and is no longer being harmed, or the perpetrator doesn't have access to the population, like whether it be children or elderly or things like that, then we will provide the client with the resources to help them consider their options. Right, on whether they want to report what happened to them when they were younger.
Okay. Now, let's say, because I'm going to kind of rewind a little bit. You said that a person, if they wanted services, they can call to make an appointment. Is there a questionnaire that is asked? How do they gauge that?
You mean a questionnaire that they have to fill out prior to making an appointment?
Prior to making an appointment.
Not prior. No,
Okay.
the only thing
Okay.
that we need to make sure is that the person that is making the appointment is actually enrolled at UTRGV.
UTRGV. Okay.
Yeah. And so the other thing I also want to mention, is that it has to be the person that is making the appointment, right? So in other words, if sometimes we'll get like calls from student health and they want to make the appointment for the student, we need to speak with the students, to make sure that they're on board with coming to therapy.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So how long is a counseling session usually? Time frame?
Yeah. So we base it, because every student that comes to the center is going to be provided with a personalized treatment plan. In other words, it's not a cookie cutter, right? So let's just say you and I, experience anxiety. The way you work through that and the challenges that come with that are not going to be the same as how I, work through that or challenge, have a challenge with that. So treatment plans are customized, they're personalized.
Okay, good.
And along the way, every therapist and student will determine, the duration and frequency of sessions. So usually sessions are 45 to 50 minutes, long.
Okay.
Now, whether we're going to see you weekly or bi-weekly is dependent on what the treatment plan, is indicative of.
Okay, so again, case by case.
Right.
I like that treatment plan because that will help somebody, see, future goals and so forth. That's awesome. Great. Now, mental health, of course, has a lot of stigma. What are some misconceptions of attending counseling and what kind of different therapies are offered at UTRGV?
Yeah, well, we know that what deters individuals from attending therapy is usually highly associated with stigma, right? Of course, there's other things that go along with that, but sometimes, a lot of the times it's stigma. Some of the most common stereotypes that exist about mental health are that these people are aggressive, weak. Weakness is something that is usually seen as, you being in therapy, that people have this inability or they're incapable of working through their own problems by themselves, right? Yeah. So we have this very this hustle mentality of you have to do it all on your own, because if not, then what does it say about who you are as a person, right? So people believe that mental illness cannot be managed, and that's not true. We can learn how to navigate through mental health, and it's really not just for people that are struggling with severe mental illness. It can really just benefit anyone.
No, that's true. That's very true. So I know that the counseling department has a project called the Body Project. I've really heard some great things about it. Can you tell us about it? And then also, what other kinds of groups does the counseling center offer? And what's the time span?
Yeah, so the Body Project, I love the Body Project because for one, it's peer-led, right? So what that means is that awesome. We have students that are trained to become peer leaders to facilitate conversations related to personal experiences with anybody that has body image issues, right? And so what they do is they discuss how culture and society pretty much impact the way that we feel about our own body, right? What are the challenges that we face? And so it's a body acceptance program. And what the goal is pretty much to defy any cultural pressures that make us feel like we have to conform to this ideal standard of what female beauty is. And so we want to be able to reduce the desire to attain this unrealistic expectation. And so this program, like I said, is actually peer-led. And so the peer leaders are supervised by myself and another therapist, Maria Alejandra. So we supervise them and we just make sure that, if they need anything, that we're there to support them. But, it's all students that come together, and it's awesome. They do that about twice every semester.
Awesome. That is really good. What about any other kinds of projects that the counseling center does have to offer?
Yeah, so
I'm going to bring it up here on the screen.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
just in
yeah.
case.
So this is a CRP. Okay, let me go back to the groups, because the counseling
Okay.
center also offers groups that are led by the therapist, right? So
Okay, perfect. Yes.
every semester, the counseling center reevaluates the needs of the students based off of what is needed, right? What is most sought out, and so this semester we have about 5 or 6 groups that are led by our therapists, and then also co-facilitated by the student interns that we have right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's that, right? And then we have the collegiate recovery program that is also a part of the counseling center, but they provide non-clinical services. Okay, so all of the groups are open to any student that is seeking recovery from addiction or addictive behaviors. And so these are the groups that are provided by Crystal Klein, is the assistant director for the counseling center and spearheads the CRP program. And she's got amazing people under her that help run these groups. So yeah, so it's really open to anybody.
And that's great, because just in this slide alone, there are quite a few, and I only knew about 2 of them. So this is good information for me. So I'm really hoping that the students that are on the podcast today are able to get some use out of these groups. That's great.
Yeah,
what about, like, we see it all over UTRGV links and sites. We see Vaqueros Crisis Line. Can you tell us what that is, the importance, and who's supposed to utilize it?
Yeah, so the Vaqueros Crisis Line is available to, again, any student that is enrolled at UTRGV. And so what we know about therapy is that students come to see us, maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, right? And it's for, like I said, a short period of time, 45 to 50 minutes.
Right.
That doesn't mean that a student is not going to experience any type of emotional distress outside of that, right? And so if we're not going to be available to them, we want to make sure that they have resources available to them. And so this Vaqueros Crisis Line is available 24/7. And if they're experiencing any type of emotional distress, they can call this crisis line and really speak to a licensed therapist that will help regulate them, help, figure out if they need further assistance, by calling 911 or being hospitalized. Those reports also go back to the counseling center. So like our clinical director, our supervising clinical therapist, all the therapists will receive those reports. And it's really just to make sure that if a student needs continuing assistance after the call, and if they indicate that we can call them, then we'll do that. And so we want to make sure that there's a continuation of care if required or if necessary.
Yeah, so checking up on them afterwards. That's good. Awesome. And we always do have that in our resource guides at the end of the PowerPoint. So we do have that information. So I do have to throw out, questions about the pandemic, because that's what our new kind of norm is right now. It's been trying, it's been exhausting. Everybody's lives have been turned upside down. I feel like nobody is exempt from it. We've all lost family members, myself included, friends and colleagues, and we've had to deal with loss in a very odd and unique way, not being able to get together and so forth. Are there any kinds of online support groups or support groups that you're aware of that you can share with us today, Val?
Yeah, so the counseling center is actually providing a grief group right now, and when they decided to do that, it was really because of what's going on, but also wanting to make sure that students felt like they had a support system, right? Like creating a healing circle for those of us that have lost people in our lives. And really, like, the grieving process is such a roller coaster, because one day you can feel like you're at the acceptance stage, and then the next day you feel like, oh man, like now I'm going back to that depressive cycle, or I'm going back to the, regrets and like replaying. And so what the group does is really just create this commodity of people that are experiencing the same thing, so that you can talk about that with somebody that really is either in the same boat or understands a little bit of what you're going through. So that's the counseling center. And then
that's awesome. That's really good to know.
Yeah. And then the other one is I sent you this resource. And so I want to make sure that students have it. It's called the Compassionate Friends. And it's really an online service that provides like the same thing, right? Like a group of people that come together to talk about the grieving process and what they're experiencing. So that's online, that is free. They have several, if you go to their website, they have several groups that you can actually participate in. So take advantage.
Yes. And I do know we have that here on our PowerPoint somewhere. I don't want to accidentally click it and hit the wrong one, but you all, just so you are aware, those of you all in the podcast today, you will be receiving the PowerPoint via email. So you will be getting all of these resources, whether they're UTRGV or like this, just resource for different books or information. So just so that you all are aware of that. Now, if someone doesn't address issues or about a certain incident that occurred maybe to them in their past, how do you see that playing out later in life if they don't address it? You know, why is counseling beneficial?
Oh my gosh, counseling is beneficial for like all sorts of reasons, right?
Give us at least a few.
All sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
Well, let's just think about this for a minute, right? Because sometimes when something happens, we may not react right away. And so we feel like, oh, we've moved on from it. We're good. We're able to just continue living the way we have, right?
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true. You know, our reactions and our responses to experiences may come in different waves. The other thing is that it may show up in different behavioral aspects, right? So the way we start to change, the way we do things, the way we start to think, the way we start to feel. And so we want to make sure that we are talking about it, you know, with people that support us, you know. So again, you don't have to go to therapy. Therapy helps though, right? Because we're going to be the people that are probably going to point out things that your friends wouldn't say to you, you know, because they're trying to care for you and they're trying to be sensitive. And we do that too. We just do that in a way that we're trying to challenge you, right? To notice things that others wouldn't. We're taking a different perspective. So when you come to therapy, you're going to be challenged in ways that you may not have been challenged, you know, with family members or friends. We're going to provide you with guidance in how to start changing some of those maladaptive behaviors that you've created. You know, we're going to start having you take notice of the thought process that you take. And so, so there's a variety of different ways in which it helps and which different things can show up for you.
That's good. Okay. So I already have here on the screen a couple of different resources that people can benefit from. You want to speak about any of these right here?
Okay. So these books here, these are all the books, right?
Yes.
Yeah, these books are all my favorites. I didn't put them all, but I definitely feel, I've read all these books and I definitely feel like these books give a different message. You know, like the first one, maybe you should talk to someone, is about a therapist that goes seeking her own therapy, but also provides insight to how she worked with different clients, right? But we all need different types of guidance and different types of processes. So there's stuff about self-esteem, there's stuff about, you know, being able to create certain types of habits that will enable us to work through, you know, some of the stressors. Permission to feel is amazing. That's the last one. That's really about like being able to sit in a space that allows you to feel all of the things that feel uncomfortable. So there's a variety of different stuff.
I read 3 of them. So so no, that's some good info. And, you know, and that I ask about like books, or I talk about books because I know that maybe somebody's not ready to go to counseling yet. And maybe this can help point them in the right direction, or at least maybe get them out of a funk of some, you know. So we hear a lot about self-care, especially right now during the pandemic, and that we should be taking time for ourselves. Why is that important? And what are some ways that we can take care of ourselves on our own?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so
at least just you. I know.
Cliche statements, right? Like put your oxygen mask put on your oxygen mask first when you're flying, right?
Right.
And then you can't pour from an empty cup. Basically what they're saying, right, is that we can't give to anyone or anything unless we're taking care of ourselves. So eating, sleeping, exercising are the basic foundations that keep us energized, but the easiest things that we tend to dismiss, right? We tend to feel like I can let go of my sleep because I have to study, an exam is coming up and I don't need it, but you do need it because that's really what's going to keep you functional. And that's one of the things that I'm constantly on the battleground with my students about, because their adrenaline literally drives their enthusiasm so much so that they feel like, yeah, I can do it without any of these 3 basic functions. But when they hit the ground, they hit the ground hard, right? And it's difficult for them to get back up. So self-care is really anything that brings you a sense of joy, a sense of pleasure, a sense of relaxation and satisfaction, right? And we have to be able to understand what those things are for us. 1, understand what those things are, and then 2, start implementing them as often as possible. And I would say daily, I need daily self-care in my life because this helps, 1, regenerate my own energy, and it helps alleviate the stressors of the day-to-day. So I know you, Amanda, you're a bookworm, right? You love to read.
Yeah.
But that may not be for everyone, right? Like if somebody spends their day reading all day for school, why would they want to read something at night? So find what works for you. Like for me, I'm a reality TV junkie. I will watch reality TV at night because it's non-educational for 1. It makes me laugh. Yeah. And I don't have to worry about like keeping anything in my brain, right? Like it's just something that I just can my brain doesn't require power, in other words, at night.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
funny. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Find what really brings you joy, listening to music, going outside, cooking, playing, all of those things, they really do help, and you need to do them daily.
I like that. I'm a bookworm. I love it. I love to read. That's such a good escape for me, and the working out like you. So I get that. What if I have friends that are therapists and they talk about grounding techniques? Can you tell us a little bit about what grounding techniques are? We can practice them on ourselves.
Yeah. Think about grounding, right? Being on the floor, being on the ground, being able to focus on the here and the now is really what it is. And what this does is this really does help regain a sense of our own control when we're experiencing symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression, any type of triggers from trauma, all of those things, right? And so grounding is imperative to be able to learn early on in therapy. So one of the first things that I do is what I call resourcing with my clients. I want to make sure that, at the end of the day, when we meet goals, that you don't depend on therapy to be able to move forward, right? Like we're trying to provide you with all of the tools necessary so that if you do experience a trigger outside of therapy, you know exactly what, your go-to is. And so we can't expect our clients to work through the hard stuff unless they have the skills necessary to regulate themselves, and that's pretty much what grounding is, so if you've ever heard of like sensory grounding, even breathing techniques, a lot of times students will say like, I know how to breathe. Why are you teaching me that? Right.
Yeah.
But it all has to do with the system.
Like, okay,
it all
Val.
has to do with our body. It all has to do with what is going on in our body. And, when you go to therapy, we will provide you with the education to learn about your mind, your body, mind-body connection, and then understand, right, why it's important to ground ourselves, why it's important to regulate our system.
That's awesome. Really quick, because we do need to wrap up. Any collaborations that you do with other departments?
Yeah, I mean, you're my go-to person, Amanda, when it comes to, anybody that is or has experienced any type of stalking, domestic violence, any type of like earlier life abuse, and the reason for that is because you provide them with a different aspect that I can't. In other words, what are the legalities of certain cases? I can't do that. And so it's important to be able to communicate and collaborate with people. So you're one, OVAP is another, Priscilla's also my go-to. when it comes to being able to provide, you know, a different type of therapeutic responses or different types of resources. Student health is also another one. Student accessibility services. I mean,
Awesome.
really, we will collaborate
Yeah.
with anybody and everybody
Yeah,
to make
we're
sure
all
that our
willing to
students
help. I
have.
get it.
Yeah.
For sure. I do know, everybody, that the counseling center is on social media, right? They're on Instagram.
Yeah, we are on
Yes.
Instagram.
Awesome.
So yeah, you can find us at UTRGV Counseling Center. Definitely follow us because there are different types of events and groups that are posted. There's different activities and resources. And one thing I do want to mention is that one of our therapists goes live every Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. where she discusses like different types of techniques and skills for stress management and regulation. So, you know, click on that follow and like all of our stuff and get us out there.
Awesome. So here are the UTRGV resources. Remember that you will be receiving them in your email, the community resources as well for different hotlines, in the book resources, the resources for the grief that Valerie did mention. And we are coming to the end of our water cooler conversation. I do want to say thank you so much to Valerie for joining us today. You are awesome. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for always putting your whole heart into it to helping our students and our campus community. Priscilla, anything you want to say real quick?
Nothing at all. Good job. And thank you, Val, for joining us. Thank you for all the great information you shared with us today. And just like Amanda said, we will be sending all this out to everybody after this. And we will also be attaching the resources, attaching a survey. Please fill it out. Let us know what other topics you all would be interested in. And please join us for our next one in 2 weeks, which we'll be talking to Yvonne Garcia, who is a sexual assault nurse examiner. So that should be interesting. So yeah.
I just want to say before, Valerie, you want to say anything really quick before we leave?
Come see us. I promise you that we will, if not us, we will find you the resources and the different types of anything that you need. Come look for us.
Yeah. Everybody, we're all here to help you, to be sure to point you in the right direction. So just be careful, be safe, and you'll have a good rest of the day. And thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you soon.